For this video I want to go over why I chose Corydoras for my fish room, as they are a great little fish to keep and work in a wide range of different tank setups. So starting with the different types of Corydoras, as there's well over 150 different types of Cory to choose from in the hobby, but most people will be able to find something that fits their needs when it comes to colour, pattern and size. I currently have 5 Albino Corydoras aeneus in my 40-gallon tank, and to my knowledge they are the most common type of Cory in the hobby. Keep in mind that there are several different colours of Corydoras aeneus in the hobby, with the standard Bronze Cory being the most popular, closely followed by the Albino variant that I have. I have seen people say that the Venezuelan Black Cory, commonly seen in the hobby, is actually a selectively bred line of Corydoras aeneus originating in Germany and not actually the black wild type Cory native to Venezuela. I've also seen other people claim that the various types of Laser Corydoras are also selectively bred lines of Corydoras aeneus, but it is difficult to get confirmation either way. Moving on to different types of Corydoras, and there's Panda Corys, and if I could rewind time I probably would have got some Panda Corys instead of my Albino Corydoras aeneus, and these have seen a huge spike in popularity recently. Unfortunately, Panda Corys are difficult to find in my area, and when they are available they are a lot more expensive than some of the other common Corys, but they look so cute with their little pattern. There's also Pygmy Corydoras, which are one of the smallest Corys in the hobby, and these also seem to be gaining popularity very quickly. My point is that there's a wide range of Corydoras in the hobby with several different colours, different patterns and different price points, so you should be able to find something that you like. Moving on to tank size, and smaller Corys such as Pygmy Corys can be kept in tanks that are as small as 15 gallons, making them a great option for smaller tanks. The slightly larger Panda Cory can be kept in tanks that are as small as 20 gallons, but I have seen some people say that they've been able to keep them in smaller tanks without issue. Corydoras aeneus and the other larger Cory species in the hobby can be kept in 29-gallon tanks and over, but again I have seen people keep them in smaller tanks with minimal issue. Unless you have a small 5 to 10 US gallon tank, there should be some type of Corydoras in the hobby that will be able to fit in your aquarium if you want this great little fish in there. One thing to note is that all of those tank size recommendations are the minimum sizes, and all of these Corys will work well in larger tank setups provided the water parameters of the Corys are met and they are kept with suitable tank mates. Moving on to water parameters, and most species of Corydoras are very easy to keep in most common aquarium setups. The majority of Corydoras have evolved in areas with slightly soft water, but they will temporarily swim through areas with slightly harder water when foraging for food, making them suitable for most pH ranges. A lot of Corydoras species do well in regular tropical aquarium setups, but anything over 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius can be a little too hot for some types of Cory, so do your specific research for the exact type of Corydoras you want to keep. Here in the UK, the Venezuelan Black Cory is often sold as a temperate fish for room temperature aquariums, but to my knowledge most types of Corydoras aeneus can work in tanks that are as low as 21 degrees Celsius. Now this does change depending on source, but the average room temperature here in the UK seems to be between 18 and 21 degrees Celsius, so adding a heater and setting it to 21 degrees Celsius may be a good idea regardless of the type of Cory aeneus you get. My 40-gallon tank is set to 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius, and my Corydoras aeneus are active and have constantly been spawning for the last few months. Corydoras have evolved to have a modified intestine that allows them to breathe air from the surface of the water when passing through low oxygen areas in the wild. It's completely normal for Corydoras to dart up to the surface and get a gulp of air every now and then, but if they are constantly doing it multiple times per minute, this could serve as an early warning that your oxygen levels in your aquarium are low. My point is that Corydoras have evolved to live in a wide range of different water conditions, allowing them to thrive in most popular aquarium setups. The next reason I chose Corydoras for my tank is due to their predictability, as most types of Corydoras are bottom dwelling fish that will consistently stay in the bottom quarter of your tank. This lets you plan your tank mates according to the different water levels in a community tank and break the water column into surface dwelling fish, mid-level fish and bottom dwelling fish. One notable exception to this are Pygmy Corydoras that seem to prefer to swim and rest in the middle of the water column in their aquariums. If you do have a smaller aquarium that requires a small Corydoras, then something like Corydoras habrosus will probably be better than a Pygmy Cory, as that will stay at the bottom layer of the aquarium while still being small. The bottom dwelling nature of Corydoras offers several other advantages for the average aquarium too. My Corydoras basically have 3 modes, and they are looking for food, eating food and taking a break after a meal, but most of their time is spent foraging around for their next meal. This means that they are constantly pushing their nose into the substrate of the tank and kicking fish waste, detritus and other random particles up into the water column, making it easier for my filter to pull them out of the tank's water column. Detritus worms don't really bother me personally, but I have seen other people complain about them, and it's extremely rare that I see any detritus worms in my aquariums with my Corydoras because they just eat them all. So if you don't like detritus worms in your tank, Corys get another tick in the box here. Corydoras can also be great at eating food that makes it through the water column without any of their tank mates eating it. The Corys use up a lot of the nutrients in the food for energy when they forage around the tank that would have otherwise been left to decompose in the aquarium and potentially spike ammonia levels. Shrimp and snails can serve a similar purpose, but Corydoras really are little eating machines, making them perfect for this type of job. Next up we have the peaceful nature of Corydoras, and I've never seen my Corydoras intentionally act aggressively towards any of their tank mates. Now I say intentionally act aggressively as they can get a little excited during feeding time once they know there's food in the tank, and they'll push their tank mates out of the way when trying to get to the food. Unfortunately, this can include their smaller, weaker tank mates such as shrimp, but thankfully I've never seen a shrimp get injured by one of my Corys during feeding time. In my opinion, the very peaceful nature of Corydoras is one of the main reasons that they are such a popular fish in community tank setups. I've kept my Corys with neon tetras, cardinal tetras, harlequin rasboras, chili rasboras, honey gourami, pearl gourami, guppies, armano shrimp, cherry shrimp and various types of snail without issue. In my experience, Corydoras just keep themselves to themselves and prefer to look for food, eat it and then take a little rest rather than interact and chase their tank mates. Corys can easily be kept with most peaceful fish in the aquarium hobby that share similar water parameters to them, allowing you to create a beautiful community tank. One thing to note is that Corydoras do have a venomous barb on their back that is designed to deter potential predators when trying to eat them. It's probably a good idea to factor this in when stocking the tank, because something like a pleco may innocently be foraging for food and swim onto the top of one of your Corys and end up getting stung, but the chances of this really are small. The next reason that I like Corydoras in my tank is that they are easy to feed, but there are some common mistakes that people seem to make time and time again when feeding Corydoras. Firstly, Corydoras are not algae eaters, so ignore any posts that you see on social media recommending that you add Corys to your tank to eat algae. To my knowledge, every single species of Corydoras prefer high protein foods, but they will eat algae wafers that are added to the tank. But if we take a closer look at the ingredients for these Hikari algae wafers that I use, you'll see that their main ingredient is actually fish meal, not algae, making them high in protein. I can't remember ever seeing my Corydoras chew down on something like brown diatom algae or green hair algae or anything like that. They just kind of wait for high protein foods to be in the tank and then they'll forage for them. Another potential mistake is not target feeding your Corydoras, as they are bottom dwelling fish and prefer to eat directly from the substrate. If you have community fish in the upper and middle layers of your tank like my 40-gallon tank, then a lot of the other fish will eat a lot of the granules that you add before they can hit the substrate. This does create a problem with this specific setup as I add more food to ensure that there's something available for the Corydoras to eat, but my other fish seem to randomly change how much food they want to eat each day, varying the amount of food available for the Corys. I've tried to overcome this problem by adding half of the food to my 40-gallon tank first and then going off and feeding the rest of my aquariums before circling back to the 40-gallon to see how much food is on the substrate for the Corys to eat. If needed, I'll just add more food at this stage, but it's around 50-50 depending on the day if I actually need to add a second feeding or not, because a lot of the time the other fish do let a lot of the food hit the substrate. This strategy has helped two of my Corydoras start to lose weight, as they both are very greedy fish and they'll happily continue to eat after the other three Corydoras in here just go off and do something else. When it comes to specific foods, I use fluval bug bites and Hikari mini algae wafers as the staple foods for my Corydoras, but they definitely seem to prefer the fluval bug bites out of everything that I've ever tried with them. For treats, I tend to use bloodworm and tubifex worms, but it has been a pain to get these tubifex worms to sink quick enough for the Corys to get them before their tank mates eat them all. Other than that, I have seen them eat detritus worms that naturally live in the tank without me adding them when they forage into the substrate, and they also seem to eat any random bits of food that I add to the tank for the other fish. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. Corydoras really are a great little fish that are easy to keep. They act like little aqua puppies and want your attention, especially when they're hungry, and they're cheap to buy. Hopefully the video was helpful. Thanks for watching and have a good day.